Welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast. Today's story is based on something that happened yesterday afternoon. So the previous night, at some point in the night, I woke up in the middle of the night and God was niggling me with this idea to sign up for LinkedIn. Some of you know that I cancelled, deleted, shut down, paused my LinkedIn account several months ago. It was maybe even last year sometime. However, one of the things that God has been laying on my heart is around this idea, part of my story, which I'm not going to repeat all of it because you've heard it before, but was this idea, this piece in my early to mid 20s when I was trying to do how I thought I should. We're told, do well in school, work hard, get your exams, maybe go to university or get a job. Somewhere along the way you get married, have children, and there's these boxes and this path which we're told we should follow. And one of the things that God has been sharing with me this week is this suggestion that possibly that following this path is that wide path that Jesus talks about in Matthew 7. And actually, it makes us miserable. Now, I'm not saying that having a job will make you miserable. I'm not saying getting married, having kids will make you miserable. What I am saying is that when we do life in a box of somebody else's devising, or we do life trying to be who we're not, then that will make us miserable and slowly drive us crazy. It certainly did me. So instead, the Itchy Soul Playground and You Year is about you being you in intentional, expectant relationship with God and actually walking that narrow path of doing day-to-day life with Him. That ultimately will allow you to have a more fulfilling, enriched, happy, delightful life. So anyway, the reason why this woke me up in the middle of the night was this niggle from God that there are people on LinkedIn who are doing the normal route, and some of those maybe are feeling a little bit sort of restless with that. And so what if I could share things on there like this podcast? And I should say, if I figure out the tech later, you might be actually enjoying this podcast on LinkedIn. If you are, you get an extra special hello. I haven't figured out the tech piece for that yet, so we'll see. But what if there's people on LinkedIn who actually would like that encouragement to step into day-to-day life with God? However, to do that, I needed a LinkedIn account. So yesterday afternoon, God said, come on then, sign up for the LinkedIn account. And I did. So I went to linkedin.com and it was in German. So I thought, this is a bit strange. Like, I don't live in Germany. I definitely don't speak German. So then I Googled LinkedIn UK and it took me to the UK version of LinkedIn. It was still in German. I didn't know how. So then I was Googling how to change the language that LinkedIn was in. And it told you to change the language, you need to go to your account and follow these instructions. I thought that would be simple, except I don't have an account anymore. So to cut a long story short, I found myself yesterday afternoon signing up for LinkedIn through the German site. And let me tell you, I know some people do speak German. Carolyn, who's in the playground, who might catch this later, does speak German. So for her, it'd be no problem at all. For me, it was a challenge. And I was flickering. I had two tabs open. I had Google Translate and I had the actual site. And even once I signed up, it sent me all the emails in German. I was like, oh my word, what's going on? I did eventually manage, thank you, Google Translate, to get, once I'd created an account and I'd logged in, and let me tell you, there are a lot of onboarding screens it makes you go through before you get in. All of which I was just like, what's skip in German? What's I'll do it later in German? But I did get there and I did change it. However, God kept reminding me about this. And so I was asking him, okay, what are you saying? And the question that kept coming up is, do we need a translator when we do life with God? Do we need a Google Translate? Now, there are temptations sometimes. We might do the talking to God version of using Google Translate. We might really wait on a word from somebody else. And it's exciting when people share things with you that they believe they're hearing from God for you. That can be really exciting. Sometimes those things are promises. Sometimes they're confirmation of promises God's already given you. It can be really encouraging. And I'm not for 1 minute casting doubt on those or saying that you shouldn't have those experiences. But if we spend all of our life waiting to hear from God through other people, we're missing out on a real opportunity. Because the answer to the question is no, you do not need a translator to do life with God. Sometimes he will stretch you. It's like he will speak to you, and we use that word speak in inverted commas. We've done that before. He will interact and do relationship with you in a number of different ways. And so if there's a way that you've typically over the last little while been hearing from God or experiencing that relationship with God, he might invite you into a new way to do relationship with you, and it might look and feel different, and that can be quite stretching, and you might find yourself going, oh, is that you, God? What? But remember, he does not want you to be confused. He wants to be known by you, and he speaks all of the languages in the world, but his ultimate language is love. And so the reminder that I had from God, and I share with you today in today's little story, thanks to LinkedIn in German, is those times when you're not sure, those times when you're like, I don't know if that's you, ask him and expect to hear from him. That's the E part in Yuya, expecting. Yeah, you don't have, every single person, God is speaking to you all of the time. And he gave me a Doctor Who reference this morning as well. And I know that Angela will extra appreciate this reference, because he said to ask him to open your senses, open all of your senses to doing life and doing conversation and doing day-to-day life with him. Because when you do that, it'll be like stepping into the Tardis. Now, Angela knows that on the Tardis, we never have an issue with the characters not understanding whatever alien planet they've landed on, because the Tardis does this auto-translate thing in their heads. And so they always understand what all these different aliens are saying. When you ask God to open your senses, to do all of life, and to experience him in all of those different ways, it's like having that TARDIS auto-translate in your relationship with him, because then you start seeing and experiencing him in all of the different places. You know, these stories are one example I've shared with you before. Like, he's been whispering stories to me for years and years and years, and I'd been sharing those stories, and I'd been sharing the takeaway from those stories. I just didn't know at that moment that it was God. Once you know that it's God, then you can start being really explicit about it. You know, that's the intentional part of Yuya. You can go, okay, God, what are you saying? And when you're not sure, you can ask him, because he loves you. Like I say, his ultimate love language. His ultimate language is love. We were created for relationship. It's always, always been about love. And so that's my little reminder and my little encouragement for you today. Thanks to, like I say, LinkedIn in German. He wants to be known by you. Now, I know we have here today live with us Angela, Jill and Acelia. You get your extra special wave, of course. And apologies, ladies, I think you know by now. Like, I don't tend to stop and chit-chat with you as we're going, because it makes for a really bad recording for the people who are catching up later on via YouTube and the podcast. But they get this bit, so that's cool. We should say as well, of course, as a reminder for folks who are listening or catching up later via the replay in any of the different places where this goes out, you can come and join us live, 9 a.m. every weekday morning, 9 a.m. UK time, 10 a.m. in South Africa, Acelia. You can come and join us as we share these episodes live. And we do have a little bit of chit-chat afterwards, which podcast listeners don't get. Today, though, looking at the time, it's going to be a short chit-chat because I'm going to go and shoot out the door and go and do boxing. But more than anything, I want to just remind you and invite you to ask God to open your senses. He wants to be known by you. I've shared with you before that I grew up believing that the only people really who heard from God were the prophets, you know, very special, set apart people. Now, there are prophets, there are people that walk and they do hear and see very clearly from God, and that's part of their remit. But we're told in 1 Corinthians, or 2 Corinthians, one of the letters to the Corinthians that Paul wrote, yeah, it is 1 Corinthians, sorry, because it's either side of it's 1 Corinthians 12 and 14, and sandwiched in between we have love. But Paul talks about how he wants everybody to be able to prophesy. What is prophesying? Hearing from God and then speaking words of encouragement. He would not say that he wants all of us to desire that, if actually that was only a gift for a select few. Every single person can hear from God and can do life with God. It's what we were created for. And it is the secret. It's not the secret. It's not going to be a secret any longer. We're going to shout it from the rooftops. That's how much God loves you. He wants to do relationship with you. And I should say as well, of course, if you're following along and you're not already a member of the Itchy Soul Playground, Angela, Jill and Acelia all are, because they're awesome. But if you're not a member of the Itchy Soul Playground and you're ready to start treading on that narrow path, you know, it can be lonely out there, which is why we are doing this in community. You have encouragement, community, we have some training, and we get to do life together. So yuya.com/join is where you can find out about that. In the meantime, thank you for being here. I shall catch up with you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.